must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
And thank you so much for joining us. It is Friday, the 5th of November 2021. My name is Miriam Ogutu. The show is the Unfiltered, and of course on today's show we get to look at the week that was, stories that stood out and made headlines in Kenya, across Africa, and indeed across the globe. And there's been so much happening in the continent, in Sudan, in Ethiopia, and in other areas. So we have so much we will look at much later after we've looked at what happened here in Kenya. But before we get to that, I'll have to bring you up to date with the latest on what is making headlines on the papers this morning, and then I'll have my panelists come in and we shall start our conversation. So I'll go through this very quickly. On the Daily Nation, the main headline: push for County 48 kicks up a storm ahead of debate next month on a bill seeking to divide one of the larger units into two. Grievances arising from the stalled Building Bridges initiatives clamor to create additional 70 constituencies, and boundary delimitation have resurfaced. The story is on page 4 of the Daily Nation. 14 killed in Samburu gunfight. The story is on page 24. The main pictorial there on the Daily Nation: Mutua and Lillian fight over wealth. And just up there, Kenya's coal dream in limbo. Countries commit to phase out coal power in shift to clean energy. The story is on page 7. And then Kenya Power staff sent home amid probe. The story is on page 6. And how policeman hid 26 million bribe money, Kenya shillings. The story is on page 5. And the Star newspaper, the main headline: Uhuru's moment of truth to kick Ruto out or wait. A president okayed NDC summit to steady the ruling party. It called for deputy president removal, but DP has laughed off the bid. The stories on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper. Cobra strikes ex-lover Lillian, says governor harassing her. Page 2, 6 cops accused of murder of Embu brothers released on bail. You'll find that on page 3. And Ford Kenya endorses Wetangula for top seat as rivals downplay move. And then KEMSA staff sent home for 30 days in graft purge NYS to take over operations. And I can tell you, Kenyans had so much to say over those that announcement that was made yesterday. The story is on page 8 of this Star newspaper, and we shall look at it very shortly. And then we turn our attention to the Standard newspaper. The main headline: DP Ruto's 135 rallies in 30 days. Now that's amazing for a deputy president. What time does he work? In 1 month, Deputy President William Ruto has visited 20 counties as he plans to reach the constitutional requirement of a quarter of vote in at least 24 counties and hitting the 50% plus one of votes cast in the presidential race. The story is on page 6. Military NYS now at KEMSA. Agency sends more than 900 employees to work from home as NYS takes over medical supplies. The story is on page 7. Mutua Lillian separation gets messy. Page 4, shocking death in a Nandi school. You'll find that on the counties section of page 24 of the Standard newspaper. Kenya Power cleanup starts. Page 29, and Mwendwa before Senate. That is the FKF chairperson, Nick Mwendwa, who has been on the headlines lately, and for all the wrong reasons. The story is on page 48. So that is what we have on our newspapers this morning. I'll bring in Samuel Tawish at this point. Tawish, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Miriam Ogutu. Good morning to colleague panelist Sharon Gitonga. And indeed, all our viewers who are tuning into this program in Africa and the rest of the world. My pleasure to join you on this program. Good morning, Miriam.
All right, good morning. And also we do have Sharon Gitonga, also journalist from Nairobi. Sharon, a very good morning to you.
Thank you very much, Miriam, and a very good morning to you right at the headquarters in Nairobi. My colleague panelist, Samuel Tawish, and to all our viewers watching us in Africa and the entire part of the continent, whether it is their morning, afternoon, or evening. It is a pleasure to be part of this discussion. Good morning.
All right, good morning. So we just start our conversation lakini ya Mutua na Lillian, hiyo wacha tuachie wa Kenya wenye wako Twitter huko. They're having a good time with it. Everybody thinks they have opinion on things they don't even know, but that is what is happening there. Okay, so the main headline on the Standard newspaper, DP Ruto's 135 rallies in 30 days. That is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. He has been very busy doing everything else except for serving Kenyans as their Deputy President. Samuel Tawish.
Miriam, thank you so much for having me on this program. Miriam, just to make a brief commentary on Deputy President William Ruto. The man is energetic. The man is still young. The man feels like this is his opportunity that is almost given. He's the one who's going to take over when President Uhuru Kenyatta, of course, retires from office. And that is why you see the Deputy President has never been so much keen in helping President Uhuru Kenyatta as the second in command, to help him achieve his legacy, to help him deliver the promises they made to the people in the run-up to last year, 2017 general election. Ever since the duo was sworn into office, the Deputy President William Ruto went back and began a rigorous campaign across the country, for his 2022 succession politics. Something that has been criticized, and I think it's a legitimate, is a genuine criticism, because again, the Deputy President would have been so much concerned and focused on helping President Uhuru Kenyatta deliver on his legacy and deliver on the promises and pledges they made to the people of Kenya. But that is William Ruto for you. He's a man who is so much of himself. He's a man who thinks more of his ambition than any other thing. And sometimes he camouflages as a man who really has the interest of the people at heart. Even when you look into his policies, you look into his campaign agenda that is actually, of course, wrapped in what is now famously known as the bottom-up economic model, Miriam. The Deputy President, if I should just put it in brief, Miriam, it's not so much of what the people of Kenya really want, but it's more of achieving his ambition and his dream of becoming the next president. So I'm not surprised that he's been moving all over the country. He continues to move. He has been crisscrossing every part and corner of this country for his Rift Valley, and particularly the Kalenjin community where he comes from. He's never been there to give people wheelbarrows. He's never been there to attend church services. He's never been there to even carry out any harambes. To a point that you start asking, Miriam, you want to tell me that we do not have mama bogas in Uasin Gishu or in the Kalenjin nation? Or is it that Deputy President William Ruto has empowered the people of Uasin Gishu and the entire Kalenjin nation to a point that they do not need any more of empowerment? Because the borders are still there. I haven't seen him empower them. I've seen the mama bogas. I've seen so many of the downtrodden in those places. I've seen there still exist so many churches, even after burning the Kiambaa Church in 2007 post-poll chaos. But the Deputy President has never made an attempt even to visit his home turf. So that in itself really tells you that he is more focused on radicalizing other regions, radicalizing other people and constituents against their leaders. That is why his focus has been so much on President Uhuru Kenyatta's backyard and more so perceived the strongholds of Raila Amolo Odinga. But we are not surprised, Miriam. The jury is out there. Come the ballot 2022 August, the people of Kenya will have to decide whether really this kind of forest that he's been making are bearing any dividends for him. I submit.
Very well. Thank you. Sharon Gitonga, 135 rallies in 30 days. This kind of vigor and commitment, if that kind of energy was directed towards supporting even the Big Four agenda, I mean, they would have done many more strides outside of what President Uhuru Kenyatta has been trying to do lately as a Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Miriam. And you have just read my mind, because I was, just to say that I wish he could just, channel that vigor and the energy that he's using to, trespass each and every county to actually work hand in hand with the president, so that they can actually finish strong, especially to deliver what they actually promised Kenyans when they were sworn in. Remember, they have a promise to Kenyans to uphold, and that is what we're actually going to hold him accountable. I think it's quite unfortunate, and my big question would be, what time does he actually work, and where does actually he get all this money to do all these campaigns? Yet, his salary is actually on the limelight. On the flip side, then I would say then. I think this is what would actually make him a front runner and not a pace setter, given that he actually started early, and probably when he was starting at that time, there was no much competition. As it may, I think strategy and direction is actually of key, because you realize that strategy actually goes hand in hand with politics, and not just the speed. It's not just about the speed. Look at what the former prime minister is actually doing, and I believe it's one of the saying that says, if you had actually 4 hours to cut an axe, you use the first 2 hours trying to sharpen that axe. And for me, I believe a strategy and direction, and actually direction goes hand in hand. You realize direction is actually way better than speed. So, and then the other big question would be is, does these rallies actually gauge the popularism to the number of votes at the end of the day? Because what is the ground saying? We have seen him, dish handouts and actually mobilize crowds left, right, and center. We've had cases, I think, the other day in Titwandei of some teachers who are actually almost being lynched by a mob because of actually being given $1 million by the deputy president, and they actually, refused to share. And I think yesterday I had Kalonzo actually saying that one man, I think in Umboni, that is in Ukambani, actually does not have, if I can call it, has no manhood because of the same. He was given a handout and he refused to share, and people were so bitter. So at the end of the day, the question goes to, what is the ground saying? Is his message actually resonating with the masses? Because for me, I'm still struggling to understand the economic module of bottom up. I've seen photos actually circulating on social media recently on a photo of women, I think in Githurai, who are actually giving him goods. I think another story just erupted another day of a man who is actually a disabled man who gave him a piece of land. So for me, within every day, I think I keep on getting confused on this economic module. And for me, from where I understand, is it a place where the rich actually squander from the poor? So I think the strategy and his message is really going to go a long way, and it's high time for him to actually change the strategy and give us a practical and a viable and actually an adaptable model that can actually resonate with each and every person. But then you also realize there's actually so much conglomerations that have actually been at the Jubilee. So what in case they actually he's actually kicked out of Jubilee, this is actually going to be a blow to him, and it's actually going to reduce his stakes. And once the ODM actually gets into merger with actually the Jubilee, you realize that this is actually going to go quite a long way. And not just that, you see even what the former prime minister has been doing. He's actually not even declared his candidature, but there's so much reception even in Eldoret, in the Ruto's own backyard. So let him not celebrate too early, but I think time is going to tell
everything. Okay, Veral, thank you so much. There, Sharon Gitonga. Now that you've brought up the issue of Jubilee and what perhaps is cooking over there, let's just finish up with this before we get into another story. And it is on the front page of the Star newspaper, Uhuru's moment of truth to kick Ruto out or wait. The story is on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper. Let's find out what the Star is saying. President Uhuru Kenyatta is facing a defining moment as he tries to steady his Jubilee Party, kick out DP Ruto, and end its vicious implosion and uncertain future. On Thursday, the National Management Committee and the Parliamentary Caucus held a joint meeting at the Safari Park Hotel, endorsing Ruto's expulsion from the party. He is deputy party leader. After years of bare-knuckle infighting and bitter sibling rivalry, the president has approved the party's National Delegates Convention at the end of the month to revamp and stabilize the outfit. The date has not been announced yet. It will be at that meeting that Uhuru will be confronted by the moment of truth. He will decide whether to oversee the expulsion of his own deputy party leader, William Ruto, or hang on, hoping he will resign. The president will also have to deal with the clamor from members to overhaul the secretariat. And we've seen how the DP has been responding to some of this information because, it has not been, they passed it yesterday, so we're waiting to see. And he's just been laughing it off, to say the least. Samuel Tawish, is it because DP knows that maybe nothing will be done, or why do you think he's acting like a man who is not worried at all?
Well, Miriam, Deputy President William Ruto is a cunning politician. He's the one who wants to display a different face in the public, but I know down deep in his heart, he's going through very turbulent moments. Turbulence in the sense that he does not know what fate is going to befall him once of course, the NDC strips him off the deputy party leader's position in the Jubilee Party. In itself, Miriam, it could go a long way in even ensuring that maybe the deputy president or William Ruto is stripped of his position as a deputy president. I'm not a law expert. I may not go into the nitty-gritties, but I'm just trying to foretell such kind of maybe happenings. If at all he's going to be stripped off, then people or the legal minds will be asking ourselves, they will be asking themselves questions. What is his position, therefore? How can he continue serving as a deputy president when he has been stripped of his position as the deputy party leader for Jubilee? Those are some of the things, of course, we are waiting to see how they are going really to unfold. But what I wanted to mention, Miriam, is that the deputy president should have done the honorable thing. Instead of embarrassing himself, continuing to stay in this other marriage when we know is in a fresh or in a new marriage altogether, he should have, given that he has disowned the Jubilee Party, given that he speaks bad of the party, says he's no longer in Jubilee Party, he should have done an honorable thing by resigning officially from Jubilee Party as a member and also as the deputy party leader of Jubilee. I think that is what principled and honorable people normally do. You cannot continue propagating ideals of a different political outfit publicly and also disparaging the party that really sponsored your election into office while you still want to stick around. That is a person who is not quite decided. A person who feels like they still need to cling onto this other position because they know they will lose benefits, they will lose the privileges that come with that position. Because if that was not the case, then why do we still have Deputy President William Ruto hanging onto those positions? He should have even hung the boots as the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. He continues to say that he's been shoved off his role as a Deputy President, that he no longer goes even into cabinet meetings, that President Uhuru Kenyatta no longer consults with him. So he's a person who is earning salary and getting privileges of a deputy president when he's an absentee, of course, employee of the Kenyan people. I think the honorable thing, instead of him really living a lie, he should come out in the open, resign and avoid all this embarrassment that is going to befall him, resign as deputy party leader of Jubilee and resign as the deputy president, so that he can now concentrate so much in building his newfound home UDA and also focus so much on his ambition of succeeding President Uhuru Kenyatta. And before I just end my submission, Miriam, allow me to go back onto the first question we are discussing. And we've been asking ourselves that the deputy president has been making so many forays across the country. You mentioned about 135 in a record how many months?
30
or is
days.
It in this year?
Oh, no, just 30 days.
In just 30 days, he's made 135 tours across the country. Then the question is, Miriam, and Ruto must do what is called a fatigue evaluation. He must do what is called, he must try to see, really to understand what impact have all these rallies or tours that he's been making in the country really given unto him. You go to Western, he still moves with Didmas Barasa. You go to of course, what we call this Mount Kenya region, he still goes with the likes of Alice Wahome, Dini Nyoro, and Kimani Ichung'wah, and Rigathi Gachagua. You go to coastal region, he still goes with Muhammad Ali and goes with Aisha Jumwa. You go to Kambani, still with Mudhama. I cannot get, even if he went to Kisii, you will still get him with Silvana Sosoro. So he's not signing in new players. Only that we are having the same crowds, the same places he does visits, and he's not getting anything out of these visits. If you want to doubt this, and if the viewers are doubting this, Miriam, I want to tell you when we get to the ballot, you'll have to prove a point. Because if the deputy president visits and tours across the countries who are making any impact, then we'll be seeing new signings, Miriam. Okay. We haven't quite seen, apart from the latest Anne Waiguru. I don't know why she's there in the first place. Maybe just strategic, but we haven't quite seen so much of people moving into that direction in terms of leaders. I submit, Miriam.
Okay, na unajua pia transfer window bado. So unajua inakuja hapo mbele. So maybe they're just strategizing, yeah? Because some of these moves might necessitate some others being removed from their parties and all that. But hours before the Jubilee meeting on Thursday, Ruto claimed his planned removal from Jubilee Party would be inconsequential because he has already moved on with his United Democratic Alliance outfit. So Jubilee will be doing him a favor, okay? Now, those people, Jubilee officials, destroyed our party. They wasted a lot of our energy until now. We have decided to shop for the wheelbarrow, meaning UDA party, to push these Kenyans. So our Kenyans wanapushiwa na wheelbarrows because they troubled us with their arrogance and intimidation. These people are useless. That is what the DP said. And he also added, you killed our party and people left it because you sold it to the riddle man, that is Twakitendawili. It is ridiculous that now you are calling a meeting and selling that which is left of Jubilee to him. So he's saying he left a long time ago. So, I mean, Jubilee, I think, has a right to just do the right thing and relieve the DP, make it easier for him.
Yeah, Miriam, definitely. I think Jubilee has been, so considerate of him, regardless of him actually publicly trying to demonize them. And I think now you actually do want us to talk about the issue of Governor Mutua and Lilian. But in this case, I'll have to say, let him actually accept the reality and just move on. Because this is exactly what is happening in Machakos. Yeah, ukiacho achika, just let go and move on.
What does that have to do with Jubilee?
No. I was just to bring in the case of, Governor Mutua and whatever that is happening with William Ruto. Yeah. This chest stamping
okay.
Not going to
make sense.
You get? Yeah, you just accept the reality and move on because it's clear that, enough said and done. He's been busy popularizing. I think Tawish has said, a new marriage, and actually that is the UDA and championing it, which is actually against the Political Parties Act. So he has actually been a stumbling block. There is no value addition that he's actually bringing to this party. Let him actually leave and do us the favor of resigning as early as now. Despite he's actually said in other forums before that he's actually ready to quit. Let him shelf of these rhetorics and actually move and focus on his newly found UDA party and actually let Jubilee actually now bring in give Jubilee windows to bring in mergers because I believe the time is actually ripe. So let him actually move and allow Jubilee to actually recollect itself by bringing in new mergers. That is even the ODM. Thank you.
Okay. So ukiachwa achika na pia ukishaachana enda acha kusumbuana, right?
Yeah.
And I did not say we could not discuss Governor Mutua and his former First Lady. It's just that, when it comes to two people who are in love, you really don't know the actual story. So I try to just mind my business, that's all. But if you want to say something, you could just...
No, you are very wise. Yeah.
All right, so another issue here that I also have heard Kenyans talking, page 7 of the Standard newspaper. military, NYS, to oversee KEMSA operations. The Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA, has told more than 900 employees to work from home. KEMSA Chair Mary Chao Mwandime yesterday said all non-core staff members have been released to work from home as the necessary consultations progress for the next 30 days. The cooperating teams, which were not specified, were appointed and mobilized for mobile operation to avoid undue disruptions to serve delivery and day-to-day operations, she said. She also said that the National Youth Service, NYS, and other government employees will oversee medical supplies across the country. She maintained that the action is a procedural formality to facilitate the review of the organizational structure for the purpose of enhancing reforms to strengthen universal healthcare, UHC, delivery. But sources at the Ministry of Health said the action was taken because of graft-related issues. During the 30-day period, Mwandime said attendant sensitivity and empathy will be maintained and all the staff will be engaged and appraised and given necessary counseling and psychological support. Why are you firing them? Now, if you're telling me I'll be given psychological and all this other support, you're preparing me for what? But anyway, sources hinted that the current employees have been asked to reapply for their jobs as the authority will be manned by NYS and the military awaiting the hiring of new staff. Those expected to vacate the office include managers and the assistants, messengers, clerks, supervisors, and subordinate staff, including tea servers and cleaners. The reorganization of staffers has been attributed to corruption at KEMSA, including the COVID-19 procurement saga, where billions of shillings was allegedly misappropriated. Tawish, I think I mentioned this, but it was not confirmed when we were talking yesterday, but now it has been confirmed. And so what is your reaction to these new developments at KEMSA? We all agree the place needs restructuring, but is this the way to go?
Yes, Miriam, you must understand that by the time this decision was arrived at, it was something that there was, a lot of consultation that made the stakeholders really to arrive to this decision that probably this time we need a different organ to oversee the operations at KEMSA. Because again, we have continued to do things the same way, but we continue to get results that are not desirable. And it was only prudent that maybe this action was taken really to allow for a thorough audit to be done as regards to what befell of KEMSA in terms of people who are involved in corrupt activities that have seen billions of shillings being lost in that particular, of course, institution. So I think it's a step in the right direction. My only worry is NYS really a good one to come on board? If it was the military, because again, they have been tested and we have seen what they have been able to do. Say, for example, the NMS in Nairobi, it is being headed by of course, a military guy.
The military NYS will oversee. So the military is there. So obviously NYS will be working under. I'm just imagining under the military.
Yeah, that will be okay, Miriam. So when you have the military, look at what is happening with the KMC as we speak today. I mean, there's a tremendous improvement in terms of how it is carrying out its work. Look into the National Intelligence Service. So when you look into President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration, I think is shifting more focus on using the military, the military, because these are disciplined forces. These are people who know exactly what they're supposed to do in terms of not engaging in bribery activities. Theirs is just to execute the mandate as it is or as it should. But when you get these other civilians really in this position, they think like it is an opportunity for them really to swindle the money. So I think it's a step in the right direction. We want to see a thorough audit being done, and anybody really found culpable of having really put his hand into the billions of shillings that got lost at KEMSA, they should be held accountable. I think that should serve as a deterrent measure. It should serve as an example for other people and other institutions in the country that they cannot continue doing things the normal way and expect that there's nothing that will befall of them. I submit, Miriam.
Okay. Now, the move to issue sacking letters has been triggered by donors who have been giving KEMSA a wide berth. Following the COVID-19 scandal, donors are saying they need reforms at KEMSA, added the source. Sharon, it was about time for this restructuring, but is this the way to go about it?
Miriam, thank you for that question. And for me, I'm trying to look at, allow me to weigh in this situation, within two sense of it. Number one being that it's actually a good measure where we have military actually taking over KEMSA, because you realize that these people actually command such a fierce, fair structure with considering their how they've actually been trained. So they from what we have seen even from NMS and KMC, they've actually been able to offer an efficient service delivery. Mm-hmm. So in that case, I think that's a very good measure that has actually been instigated by the president. And what is for me, I am also trying to look at. I think this is just like a short-term solution, but on the long term, can we actually have these people and these culprits actually being charged and being brought to book? Remember, there was actually a deadline of 21 days and I don't think so much that has been done. So this is actually a call to action and a hit to call for in these independent organizations like DPP, DCI, because we've had them, we know them, they've been brought to limelight. But I mean, can we have these people, even as the military take over, can we have these people actually being brought to book and for us, and actually get into prison and serve as an example, actually for having squandered and actually public coffers, because it cannot actually be business as usual. If we are not careful, if these people walk out scot-free, you might just hear them actually being moved to a different docket, which is actually quite unfortunate. And I think the most frustrating thing to actually the ordinary Kenya is that regardless of incidences where we have evidences being as white as snow, you've had issues of NYS scandal, and these people are actually working as scot-free, and it actually raises so much eyebrows to Kenyans, to Wanjikos and the Otienos. Why are these people actually being brought to book and actually letting them to actually face their wrath, not just when here they're being brought to book, they're actually given a lenient bail. So it's a good move, but at the same time we need to see heads rolling, and I wish we would actually get to a point where corruption can actually be made extremely expensive, that everyone actually fears to be corrupt. But until then, I think there's so much that needs to be done. I love the fact that the military has taken over, but I still insist on having these culprits being actually brought to book and let them actually face their wrath. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And of course, yesterday, officers in Kenjo Kama brothers killings out. They're now out on bail of 300,000 Kenya shillings, and 6 officers charged with the murder of 2 brothers in Kenjo Koma village in Embu County have been released after 3 months in custody. Justice Daniel Ogemba ruled that there were no compelling reasons to warrant their continued detention and released them on a cash bail of 300,000 Kenya shillings each, with the condition that they stay away from the scene of the crime. So, of course, these are police officers. And I was watching this news yesterday. I was at a place, and the person I was with immediately said, you know what, that will be the end of that story. You'll never hear that case again in our courts. And you could tell there was a sign of defeat, being that this was it's still a very public case. And of course, the wheel of justice had to take its course, but also being released out on bail is part of that. But Kenyans, the reaction I got is that that will be the end of that case. Is it, Samuel?
Yes, indeed, Miriam. I think Kenyans should be forgiven really to make such kind of a foregone conclusion that indeed when criminal justice takes that course, then more often that case is almost like it is dead. Mm-hmm. We've seen it happening in the past. You saw what happened with the Tobo Cohen death. where we had Wairimo being put behind bars for a while. Then eventually she was released on bail and asked not to interfere with the scene of crime. But what is happening, of course, you understand what has been happening with that case as we speak today. The woman is out here. She's just been moving out here and making even the case itself or the matter to be very difficult, to a point that there's even a person who wants the DPP to be removed from office because of citing or making reference of that his failure to prosecute that particular matter. So I'm not quite surprised that Kenyans are having such kind of a feeling that given that these individuals are out, it's more like this is the end of that matter, Miriam. And provided that they are police officers, if they're going to go back to their jobs, because I'm asking myself, if it was like they're being released on bail and they are asked not to step, say even in their offices, they cannot continue maybe working, then that will be somehow different. But if they are still officers and they have been released to go out there, only that they are asked not to go to the scene of crime, what does it essentially tell you? That you're likely going to have these people come out, continue executing their jobs, and also making it difficult for the continuation of that case. So I think this is a defeating in terms of justice, more so to the victims and family of the people who lost their kins. And this is not something that we really desire as Kenyans. The biggest problem, I think, are loopholes that we have in our constitution, Miriam, because they allow and the judges cannot continue having these people behind bars when there are no reasonable grounds really to continue holding them there. So I think, Miriam, to a large extent also, it is the constitution that we adopted, the constitution that we borrowed, that has allowed all these things really to take place, and more so such kind of suspects to take advantage of. I submit, Miriam.
Okay. Now, this is what the judge said. Although the prosecution argued that they have a strong case against the accused to secure their conviction, no evidence has been placed before the court to make a finding that would result in denying them bail. And we know the people are involved. I'm not accusing the Kenya police. I've needed services before from the police, and they've been excellent. We have very professional police, force in this country. We have good police officers in this country, but in the same breath, we know what else happens. So, of course, it's the police who are supposed to present this evidence in the watertight case, to help in the conviction or through the case there. I don't know if this will happen. And I know we're talking about a case that is in the court, but as a Kenyan, what do you think will happen at the end of this case?
Thank you very much, Miriam. And I also agree, largely that this case is actually not going to see the end of the day. And it's quite unfortunate that this is actually going to be the end of this case. But when I look at the family that is so much oppressed and, feels like justice has not actually taken course, it is actually unfortunate that we had people who had to lose their lives. And remember, life that is lost. This is not like a destruction of property where this can begin. We are talking about lives that were actually lost. How is this going to turn out for the family that is actually looking onto our court systems? Then we just wake up one day and all we can hear is that apparently these people have actually been freed on bail. It's actually quite unfortunate. And the fact that you cannot even quantify any amount of money to a life that has been lost, it's quite unfortunate to the court systems. And I feel like I don't know actually where we are headed with these court systems. If they can say there was actually no evidence, that was actually there was no evidence, then the first place, why did they actually bring these people to book? I think for them to have actually brought these people, it had to be actually quite some evidence for them to actually be brought to book. It's quite unfortunate, and I'm bleeding with the family of these individuals that life had to be lost prematurely. And I don't know. It's our country where why then can we even change our national anthem that we keep on saying that justice should be our shield and defender?
Because we can't change it. We'll keep saying it until it becomes a reality. One day.
Well, let us keep on preaching that until one day it will be.
Well, It's not that bad, it's not like
Miriam,
everything's
it's very bad. I know you're a mother, and you can feel you can feel the pain for any mother to lose, and especially this mom. I think she was actually abroad, so it's quite unfortunate that it's actually this is coming from the court systems.
All right. So anyway, the case has not been entirely dismissed, but when you hear a judge starting to say that the prosecution does not even have a proper evidence, then
you can read between the lines.
Okay, let's just wait and see how the court will handle this matter. I think that's all. I'll be waiting to see and how long it will take. Okay, some good news. Kenya Power. Not really some good news to some people, but I think some reforms also have started at the Kenya Power offices. Now, Kenya Power yesterday suspended 59 senior procurement employees as reforms at the troubled company started in earnest. The electricity distributor said the affected staff, all senior members of its supply chain and logistics department, had been made to step aside pending investigations into possible procurement malpractices that have threatened to the sustainability of the company while exposing Kenyans to high power bills. The move follows recommendations by a task force appointed by President Uhuru Kenyatta in March to probe contracts between the utility firm and electricity generators. The task force, in its report, fingered the procurement department as among the major problems afflicting Kenya Power. And I've not read the whole of that story, but with this new restructuring and what is happening now in Kenya Power, and the government must have heard the numerous cries from Kenyans. Is there a hope of having a light at the end of that tunnel and having a new Kenya Power that will work not to, oppress Kenyans, but to, offer power, but also at an affordable price, Tawish?
Absolutely, Miriam. I agree with you that there's hope at the end of the tunnel. And this is the right thing really to do, because we have been oppressed as the ordinary people of Kenya, more so as the consumers who rely heavily on the services being provided by Kenya Power. And it's not just enough really to send these staff or individuals home. I think it is also important that anyone through investigation and audit reports, the recommendations that are therein, that one of the recommendations indeed was to send these staff home, but they should as well be prosecuted because this is a criminal matter. They have deprived of the services to the ordinary mwananchi by virtue of their acts of omission or commission to the Kenya Power. So it's very important, and we want to see that beyond sending them home, that these individuals as well must face the full wrath of the law, so that they serve as an example to Kenya Power or those who are coming to replace them, and even those in other institutions who think that the getting an opportunity to work there is an opportunity for them really to siphon from the people of Kenya. So this should serve really as a very good example, and I'm very happy that with the intervention from the government through the Ministry of Interior, led by Dr. Fred Matiang'i, that this is happening, and we are going to see a very thorough revamp in as far as Kenya Power is concerned. So when all this is happening, Miriam, I think the ordinary people really are the ones who are going to smile by the end of the day, because we are going to see efficient services being delivered to the people. We are going to see, of course, electricity bills also go down, because the reason why we've been seeing those bills going up, and sometimes even exaggeration in terms of the bills, it's because of rogue people who have been working there. So when you get these people, when you get rid of these people, when you get the right people working there, I think it will be a sigh of relief by the end of the day for the ordinary people. I submit, Miriam.
Thank you. Say hi to the little one there, Tawish. Sharon, is there hope that things will be different at Kenya Power?
Miriam, I don't want to really sound so much optimistic, but I am.
But it's a good move.
It's a good move. Yes, it's a good move. But we live in a country where we give so much. We are so good at talking, but no actions being taken place. But I'm holding on the president's promise that by come December, we are going to have stabilized this whole crisis of Kenya Power. I don't know if you've realized right now, I think the electricity has just hit the roof. I mean, if you've paid for tokens, I was so shocked.
Really?
My heart...
Like, it has doubled? I mean, because I have the old meter, I have no idea. Plus, they've been bringing me ridiculously
paying for.
low bills. I'm wondering what's happening.
It is crazy. I was so shocked. At some point, I even wanted to call Kenya Power, especially if you use, let's say, for example, if you're paying for 1,000 for a week on a weekly basis, you're used to getting like 30 tokens. Right now, it's gone lower to, I think, until 22 or even lesser.
Oh, really?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. So I am holding on the promise, and the fact that actually there was some reshuffling at the energy with the energy CS. I'm holding on the president's promise that December that things are going to be stabilized. But from where I speak, I am so disappointed. But let me try to hold on the promise that given by the president. Thank you.
All right, so it's a good move. So of course they've removed have the 50 officials there step aside to enable investigations, and of course those found culpable will face the law. Myself, I use the old meter, and as I said, lately the prices have been ridiculously low. I think a month ago they brought me a bill of 108 shillings for a whole month. I was like, what? And so I was hoping when the next month the bill will be much, because I used to get like 2,500 or 3,000 per month. So now, last month, I think they brought a bill last week. It was about 700 and something. So I'm a very happy Kenyan, I think.
I personally don't spend anything less than 4,000 in a month, not less. I mean, I'm so disappointed, honestly. I think we are reading from different scripts. Maybe Tawish can give us his.
Plus, I don't even know how those tokens work, so I'm a very old-fashioned. I have no idea.
For my case, I'm using prepaid tokens, but I'm also quite surprised that Sharon is paying to a tune of 4,000 a month. I don't know. It depends on maybe the use of electricity in her house. Probably it's what is hiking that bill.
Amu kuna salon hapo kwako.
But yangu haipiti 2,150 hapa.
All right. Yangu ni shilingi 100 tu. Kenya Power.
I think you're the state of this country and you're not saying.
I was even shocked. So I was hoping for a bigger bill last week, but it was just 700.
You need to be investigated, Miriam. You need to be investigated.
Yeah.
What? My meter is outside. I don't even know when they come and read it.
You're colluding with some stuff at the Kenya Power.
Hata siwajui. Wanakuja nikiwa hapa. Anyway. Let's move to the Daily Nation. And the main headline, a push for County 48 kicks up a storm. Did you know? Supposed to have a County 48. The story is on page 4 of the Daily Nation before we get to the week that was. Now, the push for the 48th county has spilled over into campaigns for next year's elections, revived demands for new electoral zones, and rekindled the controversy during the adoption of devolution. Ahead of next month's debate in the Senate on the proposal to amend the Constitution, grievances arising from the stalled Building Bridges initiatives clamor to create additional 70 constituencies and boundary delimitations that the Electoral Commission has said will only be completed after 2022 elections are resurfacing. The Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2021 seeks to split the expansive Kitui County into two to bring services closer to the people. If passed, it will also be considered by the National Assembly, and should it navigate the treasurer's political waters in Parliament on time, the proponent plans to ride on the general election, having the question as a seventh ballot to avoid a costly referendum. What? Now, apart from proposing the creation of a new Mwingi County, the bill seeks to increase the membership of the National Assembly and Senate. The National Assembly will have an additional women rep to be elected in Mwingi County, while the Senate will have 3 more members. These are the elected one and 2 others the bill proposes are elected to represent special interest groups. So as we are sitting here preparing for a general election next year, there's a possibility we'll have an extra ballot paper there for a referendum. Tawish.
Well, whichever way it goes, Miriam, I think our focus should be whether the people of Kitui or any people in the Republic of Kenya really feel like they're underrepresented. Because if you're giving a case of Kitui, if the population is that big, if the Of course, if the area, that is the area in Kitui County is that big, then I think it is only prudent that that county is divided into two, so that people really feel that they are well represented. The other day, I was just, of course, I was in those parts of Meru, and I also heard the people of Meru complaining that they wanted a merger of Tharaka Nithi County and Meru to become one, because the people of Meru feel like the Tharaka Nithi County is the fulcrum or the center of the Meru region. And therefore, if you have Tharaka Nithi and Meru just left on its own, it is like they are deprived of its identity. And that is how they have been arguing, that they would rather have Tharaka Nithi and Meru County really rejoin and become one county. But on the other hand, there are people who feel like their county is so big and they want it to be divided, a case you are giving of Kitui. Another point, Miriam, there's this issue of the 70 new constituencies that was being pushed through the Building Bridges initiative. I think we are not yet sure what is going to be the final fate of BBI. Is it going to be allowed to sail through at the Supreme Court, or are we going to let it just die like that? And if it's going to die, what are the amendments that maybe parliamentarians can bring to Parliament to see into it some of the issues that really can be done through parliamentary legislative actions without quite, barring all these kinds of good amendments and good proposals that we had in the BBI. For example, we talk about the 70 new constituencies. There are people really who feel like they need new constituencies because they feel they are underrepresented. Talk of the Ward Development Fund. 1 million Kenya shillings per ward every financial year. This is great news because there's also a feeling that if you went to the county governments today, the members of county assembly sometimes also, some really feel like they are marginalized, that the governor more often really goes to take development to those other wards he feels is well received or he has much support. And those that do not quite support him do not get that support. So to leverage on that and make sure that we have quite a balance in our counties as well, BBI was trying to have a proposal that we can have 1 million Kenya shillings given to the MCAs or for the wards for ward development fund. That's quite good. Look into the proposal to have, for example, exemption on taxes for for graduates who are coming fresh from school and beginning their businesses, that they will be given a window period or a grace period where they can be able to start their businesses without quite paying taxes. I think these were very good and sound proposals that any right-thinking and the person who is of good meaning to this country should have supported. And I'm very sure, even as we head into 2022, the leading presidential candidates will have to dangle this carrot once again, that even in the unlikely event that maybe the courts shut the doors for any continuation of the BBI, probably after the election, it will be revisited, that there will be an avenue for us to go back and start it afresh so that maybe we can accommodate all these interests. Say, for example, Raila Odinga contesting for presidency and he wins, and he picks somebody like Peter Kenneth as his running mate. And you've brought on board Kalonzo Musyoka, Moses Wetangula, you've got Musalia Mudavadi, Hassan Joho, Oparanya, and so many other people with their interests, really. How are you going to accommodate them? Even if you are to talk about giving ministerial positions, I mean, we only have a maximum of 22 ministerial positions. How will you be able to satisfy all these individuals? So even to be able to accommodate, because our perception as Kenyans has always been, if you give Musalia Mudavadi a very senior position in government, the people of Luyaland really feel like we are represented in government. That is a perception. It does not matter how someone wants to interpret it, but that has always been the case. If Raila Odinga became president today, in as much as Miriam who reigns from Siaya do not even see eye to eye or has never met Raila Odinga, there's that feeling that one of my own is really president. I'm not insinuating that, Miriam, that is how you feel about Raila Odinga becoming president, but it's just a general perspective I'm giving. So generally, I think these are some of the good things that BBI was bringing on board, and we want to see whichever kind of approach or initiative that will see into it being adopted. It's highly welcome, Miriam. I submit.
Okay, thank you. And of course, Sharon Gitonga, do you think this will open the Pandora box and we might start the conversation of the BBI all over again? And maybe now that the politics around the BBI have calmed down, people are able to look at these issues and these articles that were contained in this amendment bill clearly and realize, hey, we seem to be missing out on some of these good things that were contained in the BBI.
Thank you very much, Miriam. And of course, I don't want to repeat, Tawish has actually said the most, but in just a few words, at the end of the day, I think it should actually ring a bell that we need to, bring back the BBI, because all this is what that was meant to actually solve all these problems, whereby we would have gotten 70 more constituencies, and in this case would have more inclusivity and more representations. So I think this should actually ring a bell that we actually need to bring back the BBI. And I think Dr. Matsanga keep on saying that we need a redemption strategy, and in this case it's only the BBI that can solve. So I think it's high time we just look back and see if we can actually challenge to see if we can have the BBI, because it's not just that county. I'm sure there are more other counties like Tawish has alluded to. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we shall just leave that there. Another news quickly before we look at what made headlines across the world this week. CS Matiang'i assures that there will be no internet shutdown during 2022 elections. The government has pledged to not shut down the internet during the polls next year, despite noting an increase in abuse and misuse of social media, while promising a deal to deal sternly with abuses of social media platforms during the campaigns and elections. Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i said Kenya is mature and strong democracy and pace-setter in the region, and therefore cannot stoop low by shutting down and I totally agree with him. Like, what? Shut down internet for what? Samuel Tabish. I wouldn't expect the government to do that anyway.
Well, Miriam, these are retrogressive, of course, attempts that governments usually resort to when they want to do that which is not correct. You've seen it happen in other countries, more so in the African continent during elections. You've seen during, of course, uprisings that they resort to cutting internet because they feel like with internet, so much hate and so much propaganda is being spread so quickly to the people unregulated. And therefore, they feel maybe this is the only way they can be able to regulate, of course, the infiltration or how messaging is being done. In fact, the internet itself, Miriam, is a very good thing indeed. But more often, of course, there are people also who are abusing and misusing this privilege that we are having by the use of internet. You've seen how information, hate speech has always been spread through the internet. It's not like what you used to during maybe, through conventional media. But nowadays, information gets spread so quickly, even before the mainstream media really gets a hint of it. So in itself, I think, much as the government is promising that they will not cut, of course, internet or disconnect internet during the 2022 general election, this is something that is widely expected, and I think it is the right thing really to do. It is not that they are giving us a favor. It is not like it is something that Matiang'i is just doing out of his will, but it's something that the Constitution really dictates as a right that people can continue enjoying the internet services. But again, the ordinary people should also be challenged. They should also be put to task. That they should not end up misusing this, of course, internet, and they use it for spread of misinformation and hate speech that can result into violence in as far as the 2022 general election is concerned. But I think just like you've alluded to, just like Matiang'i has said, that Kenya is a mature democracy or is getting mature with time. I want to hope so, because what happened in 2017 was not quite impressive when some of the television, some of the media houses were really shut down because they just went to air the swearing in, the illegal swearing in of Raila Amolo Odinga at Uhuru Park. I do not understand what crime those media houses really committed, because it is just about informing the people what is going on, that the opposition leader was swearing himself in. So this was something that should have been allowed just to proceed, should have been allowed for the media to do it without quite being gagged. But what we saw was not quite a good example. I want to hope that as we get into 2022 general election, that we are not going to see similar incidences, and this being a promise coming from government through the Ministry of Interior. I hope they are going to live by that promise. Miriam, I submit.
Thank you so much. And of course, perhaps Kenyans would wonder why would the government come out now and tell us they will not, shut down the internet. That is because as much as we have, freedom of speech is guaranteed in our constitution, and we enjoy that freedom. And that's why we're sitting here talking, not worrying that somebody will follow me home. I can sit here and talk and exercise that freedom as a journalist. But also freedom comes with responsibilities. And as we go towards this season of elections, we've seen how politicians can be reckless. We've seen how fake news travels very fast, and we've seen all manner of things going on in social media. And social media, as much as it's a very important place in terms of dissemination of information, but also it has become a right place where we've seen revolutions start across the world. We've seen people go out and look for change, but we've also seen fake news and things that are not accurate and things that are meant to incite and people to violence and things like that take root and being spread in social media. So how can the government now balance this very delicate, have this delicate balance between making sure that Kenyans access that social media and the internet, but also hold these people culpable? Are there mechanisms that perhaps should be put in place to ensure there's proper regulation, even as Kenyans enjoy this very important thing?
Thank you very much, Miriam, for that question. And of course, I agree largely with what Tawish has said. And I think I love what lately the Ministry of Interior has been doing, especially trying to, ensure that security is upheld, especially during the period of election. And it is actually quite... It's actually quite inspiring confidence, even for Kenyans, because you realize that security is quite very fundamental, and especially when it comes to actually elections. Coming to the question of social media, I think you realize, and internet at large, is that social media is very key and it's very critical in any aspect. And by and large, that is the reason as to why we actually converged here. Last Friday, we actually held a global summit, and we had people from all parts of the world coming together to resonate and share different views about Africa at large. So you realize that social media is actually very, very critical. When you talk about business, people transact businesses through social media, and that is why the day that we had a 6-hour blackout, it was quite intense for people at large, because in one way or another it actually impacts positively, but not forgetting to talk about the negative point of social media, whereby it's so easy for people to actually spread malice across social media platforms, and you realize that actually information in social media spreads out very fast. So it should actually be a lesson to Kenyans, and especially the youth who are actually mostly occupy largely social media. Even as we approach elections, let them filter the words that they decide to post on social media, because the words that they post might actually be used against them. Do not post any information without having verified its authenticity. You've seen the case of, I don't know how far they actually gotten, the case of Dennis Itumbi and the Lamada Hotel scandal. I don't know if it's a case that was actually shelved off, or it's a case that is actually going to be followed to fruition. So in essence, social media is very critical, and I believe within coming times, I do not have any doubt when it comes to the Ministry of Interior and Security. They're actually going to give stringent measures to people actually being brought to book for having spread for causing any tension, and for actually spreading any rumor, any false rumor that is going to be spread across the internet at large. So I believe, and if not, I can actually appeal to the Ministry of Interior to actually give us stringent measures to actually people who are going to be caught, spreading false rumors and malice on social media, especially now that we are headed towards, the period of election. So I think what the Ministry of Interior is actually doing well, and I wish IEBC could actually copy to also transpire, transparency and keep us updated, so that they can actually be able to boost confidence, especially towards now the period of election, not actually doing the fact that they are independent, let them not isolate themselves by actually taking or everything to their own cost. Let them keep updating us and actually boosting confidence. This will actually bring more people out to actually vote. Thank you.
Okay. Very well, IBC, you heard her. Okay, so now I'd like to know, so we shall start with you. What stood out for you this week in terms of the news that have made headlines?
Thank you so much, Miriam. What stood out for me largely is about that particular climate summit that was taking place in Glasgow, Scotland, because to a large extent, this is something that touches to the core lives of all and sundry. It does not matter which part of the planet you live in, as long as you live on planet Earth, really, you are affected by whatever kind of things that are happening as far as climatic changes are concerned. And what impressed me so much is the renewed commitment from the partners and stakeholders to ensure that we can revisit and get back on the drawing board and ensure that we really see how we can restore, restore our regions, how we can restore our climate, how we can be able to plant more trees, how we can be able to ensure that we have a sustainable food for our people, how we can be able to make sure that the droughts that continue to ravage most parts of the world really can be brought under control, because it has likely been blamed on the human, of course, and human actions. And if there's something that we can do, if there's something that, say, developed nations can do, and the biggest polluters in the world can do to try and bring this situation under control, we will be securing our future, and we'll be securing the future of our children and that of our children's children. I think it's a great milestone. And out of the talk and the summit that we have had in Glasgow, I want to hope that the same is going to be put into action, so that by the end of the day, it is not just about putting words into paper, but actions must follow these particular commitments that we continue to make during these summits. But I'm very hopeful that maybe this time around something new is going to be done, so that at least we can have to restore our climate. Miriam, I submit.
Okay, thank you. And for you, Sharon Gitonga, what stood out for you? It could be more than one item, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I would also want to talk about the elephant in the room as we speak is, the Globe COP26 summit that was actually held in Glasgow. So for me, I loved the speeches. For me, they were quite fundamental, given that they were actually capturing where the problem is. And there was one particular speech by, I think, David Attenborough, if I pronounce the name right, who happens to be a British naturalist. And he said, and he actually insisted that this current generation of leaders cannot afford, to waste more time. And for me, it was quite fundamental, given that it was actually coming from a 95-year-old old man. So, and he actually took point to note that it is time for delayed act. There has been delayed action, and it is time for for us to actually take action. I also noted that throughout the conference there was actually there was no clear political will, especially coming from the world's biggest polluters. Talk about America, talk about China. If anything, actually didn't see anyone from China being represented at the summit. And there was a video, I don't know if you were able to see it, of Joe Biden actually sleeping during the summit, some minutes before his summit.
They say he was just resting his eyes. He was not actually asleep. Apparently there's a difference. For me, just resting his eyes.
I understood it quite differently, and it showed. This was quite a fundamental. It was quite a very critical summit. For me, I actually read some reluctance, and I don't know. That was just my own view. So, in essence, you realize that the world, should actually fulfill its promises that they make to Africa. There has been so many talks, without action. And I was imagining if us as Africa, the South of Africa, if we were the ones that actually were responsible for the climate change in the West, and you realize that this conversation would have actually been totally different. We have had, I think, these conversations for the last 26 years, and I think that is the reason as to why it was called the COP26, yet the problems are the same. I was reading, there was quite a lack of commitment and so much push and pull, especially between the rich nations that actually happen to be, the cause of these, climate change. Then when you talk about financing, for me, it also raised an eyebrow why, the World Bank, we've seen the World Bank has actually funded us, but why does this? We all know that this money is actually a loan. Why do we have to get a loan? For a country, for actually in the organizations of actually the countries that actually cause actually at the forefront to cause one of the problems that we've actually been facing. So I think the aspect of finances, if we are really talking about collaborations, we have to get to a point where we can talk about symbiotic collaborations and not parasitic relationships, collaborations rather. As I finalize, I think there's one speech that I saw, I think, from an Indian activist talking about the issue of stolen lands and invasion of the seas that has to be stopped, and that indigenous people have to be at the center of the climate responses. And this actually reminded me of I think during the panel, the pre-COP 26 summit, one of, I think, a lady from Zimbabwe actually raised these. It was quite critical that this is actually one of the reasons that even Zimbabwe faces sanctions. So in essence, so much has been said over and over the last 26 years. Years just come and go. I think the biggest difference that I actually noted is that this time African countries have actually focused more on adaptability and not just mitigation. So let's get into an arena of action, moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. You really have been paying attention to that COP26. And again, President Biden was resting his eyes and he was tired from the jet lag.
Medium. I'm not buying that narrative.
Alafopia is old, yeah? So we can't
he
be
would
so
have said,
hard on him. Yeah.
America is actually at the spotlight, so it was quite critical, and that is why, and that is the same thing we are talking about social media. People were so keen to anything that is actually posted in social media. People were so keen to, read through the lines. For me, I actually read reluctance. I don't know. That was just my personal view.
I just saw a very old man just trying to rest his eyes. That's all I saw for a couple of minutes, and then he was up again. That's what I saw. But thank you so much. While the COP26 was going on, and I think it's still, what came to my mind about, Kenya is part of the countries that have made that commitment to start investing or put more effort on renewable energy. If the country can work on its taxes and reduce the taxes, especially on LPG, the gas, that more Kenyans can access and use gas. That will reduce the firewoods, the forests that are being cut. That will reduce the need for charcoal. So we have to find ways that will, practical ways. And then in the villages where people have this, there's biogas, support inventions that will, make sure this happens down at our villages and things like that. So we still have so much we can do that we are actually able to do as a country. But I don't know why we don't do so much. We don't take that step to address some of the issues around climate change. But we have to find practical ways and to honor that commitment we've made as a country. And of course, the Ethiopian conflict stood out for me this week. I think that is something that should worry all of us, what is happening in Ethiopia. The government of Kenya, of course, has closed the border between Kenya and Ethiopia because of the possible spillage of what is happening over there into the country. And I think yesterday President Museveni of Uganda announced that we shall have, the East African head of states will have a meeting on the 16th of this month. I don't know why the 16th. Today is on 5th. Is this matter not urgent? Or maybe they had other things to do. But 16th, well, we're having, you know, an active war happening in Ethiopia. So they'll have a meeting, the EAC heads, to deliberate over the issues in Ethiopia. But I thought this is something that could happen as quick as, you know, as early as when this COP26 ends, you know, so that we can, and, you know, technology now has made things very easy. So it's not like they're traveling to Arusha to meet at the East African headquarters. They can meet, you know, online and just deliberate and see what can we do as a region to put some effort on helping what is happening in Ethiopia. What part can we play? And so I think on 16th is just Nimbale Sana. I think the issue in Ethiopia is urgent. The issue in Sudan also is urgent, and we kept saying that and nobody was saying, and now look at what is happening. So that also stood for me this week. Sharon, you look like you want to say something else.
No, I just wanted to add when you talked about the timing that has actually been extended, you know, by Museveni. I think this should have actually happened like yesterday. And when you talk about technology, I 100% agree with you that it's not about any logistics. It's just a matter of internet that is largely available in every part of this continent, because I think now it's actually been an year since the war actually broke down. And it's quite unfortunate, even as we speak about globalization in African countries, we are actually talking that we need to have every country on board. We cannot afford to leave any of us behind for us to actually be part of globalization. So I think it's high time that we actually prioritize this matter, because for me, I look at Ethiopia being quite vital. And I think I was actually looking at statistics that Kenya is, I think, the 6th largest economy in Africa, and it's actually followed by Ethiopia. So when you talk about matters economy, Ethiopia, I think even during the construction, Ethiopia was one of the case studies. So this is actually a matter of urgency for African leaders to actually, consolidate together and bring, efforts in together in a matter of urgency. Thank you.
I agree with you totally. Thank you so much. Tawish, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add, but we're coming to an end.
Well, Miriam, mine is just about, of course, we first of all need to laud President Museveni for taking that initiative at a time when almost everybody is not taking any action, or almost everyone is silent. I'm talking about even the regional organs that we have. They are not so much keen into seeing how we can end this particular conflict in Ethiopia. And Miriam, I wouldn't quite think maybe it is because of that Museveni does not want to have this meeting scheduled as soon as possible, but maybe according to their diaries, that is the soonest that they can. You know, presidents normally have very busy schedules. They have very tight calendars, and maybe to secure this time to speak about this particular matter, maybe this is the soonest that they could get time. Second point, Miriam, if you have any security background, you'll understand that what is happening in Ethiopia is so delicate. It is matters to do with security, and maybe these are not matters that you can just execute through, say, internet or say through virtual meetings. I remember when I went to Mashujaa Day for Mashujaa Day celebrations in Kirinyaga, and I think it was State House or military, or whichever the case, had really put down internet, and you could not quite even do, say, live stream. Unless then you could get a password for State House Wi-Fi. And someone came and hinted to me, gave me a State House Wi-Fi password. So I was able to do a few things because of that particular person who came out and gave me the password, which was not primarily intended to be given to another person or say to civilians like ourselves, even in as much as I'm a journalist. So what does it tell you? That you can always get this wrong people who can say leak passwords or leak this information and you understand how our internet, how our virtual, of course, meetings get porous sometimes, people can be able to maybe infiltrate and listen into the sensitive security matters that these heads of state will be conversing. So it is important that they secure time within their busy schedule and meet physically to deliberate on the way forward in as far as the conflict in Ethiopia is concerned. I submit, Miriam.
Well, thank you so much. And I see a couple of comments here from our viewers, and one of them just called me by the wrong name. Hati mimi sasa ni Madam Maribe. Really. But thank you so much for watching, Alos, and the rest of you. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, Samuel Tawish. Thank you, Sharon Gitonga. This has been the week that was. We started by looking at the newspaper headlines this morning and the stories that are trending, a lot of them today, and also what stood out for us in this week. We shall meet you here, God willing, on Sunday, 2 p.m. East African time for more conversation and news from across the continent on Africa Showdown. My name is Miriam Mugoto. It has been a pleasure. Have a wonderful weekend.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.